Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's card is this cute happy anniversary card. You can see all about the hearts. We've got a die cut strip in the back here with a whole load of different hearts in different sizes. We've backed that with some red paper. We've then also cut out some lovely long stemmed hearts on stalks, and we've just coloured the tops of those in so that we haven't faded that all the way down, so that they're the same hammered cream at the bottom. And then we've used a simple happy anniversary sentiment which we've printed and just mounted on the same red paper. So that's our card for today. It's got a little bit of height because the happy anniversary is lifted above the base, and just a very clean and simple card for a nice happy anniversary occasion. If you want to see how that's done, stay tuned. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to be using this die, which is a cute die. It does a strip with lots of hearts in it. We're going to be using that, and we're going to also be using this. These are hearts on stalks. It was very popular for a while. We're going to kind of do this sort of thing, and then we're just going to put a simple happy anniversary on top. So this is going to be a fairly clean and simple card. I've got a piece of hammered card here, which I've folded in half to make into a 6-inch card. I'm just going to go over that with my bone folder actually, because it's not exactly folded in the right place. This is a cut down of a bigger card, blank basically. So to start with, we're going to create our back panel. So I'm going to do layers. So I'm thinking, sorry, what am I doing? That's not the right blank. Ah, this is the one. Sorry. So I'm thinking same card on same card. So that's going to be in the background on the hammered card, but we're going to colour it red. We're then going to do the red stalks and then white with a little tiny black backing on top. So it's going to be very much a clean and simple card. So the first thing to do, and I'm just using this scrap piece of the same hammered cardstock, is to cut our hearts out. So I'm going to do this in my Gemini, which is off screen, sorry for that, but basically I'm just going to pop that into my die machine. I'm not going to tape it down, hoping that it doesn't move, but just pop that through. First of all, you can hear it but you can't see it. I could have done the stalks at the same time really, if I thought about it. There we go. So there's our die cut, and I will just take the hearts on there just in case I want to use them. And then similarly, I'm going to do these out of the same piece of spare card. Let me just run that through as well then. These hearts on stalks are very, very good, and there's a hell of a lot of different ways you can use them. Colouring parts of them. They're quite often handy to put behind things poking out. That was an unbranded die I bought from Temu. There we go. So there's our hearts on stalks, and I've actually used this as well, the sort of inverse cutout. So what I'm going to do is just grab my red distress ink. So I've got here my Festive Berries, which is a really lovely bright red. So we're probably going to use that. So I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap paper. I've got a piece here that's got some scribbles on it. And basically I'm just going to pop these out first of all using my tweezers. I found the easiest way to do this, to take them all in one go. There we go. Although that didn't quite work. They are quite fragile, so you have to be a little bit careful with them. There we go. So there's our hearts. Now, I mean, obviously I could have cut these in red if I'd wanted to, and they would have been all red, but I want to do a kind of a faded ink on them. So I'm just lining these up so that they're roughly kind of in the same order, but I want to get them kind of so that the heads are pretty much aligned. You can see you've got different size heads, large ones, medium ones, and small ones. So I'm going to use my distress ink, and I've got here my red sponge. So the easiest way I found to do this is if you put a ruler across it with a padded bottom, that way it stops it moving. So I just want to get a little bit of colour on the tops. So I'm starting at the top so that that gets most of the colour from the sponge, very lightly pressing, and then just working my way a little bit down the stalk. If I want it a bit further down, I'll just move my ruler. But because I'm not renewing the ink, you can see there's a lot of residual ink on here. As I'm kind of moving down the stalk, the red colour kind of fades away. And this is the effect we want. And then I'm just going to go in on the actual hearts with a bit of full-on red. There we go. So if I take the ruler away, you can now see we've got quite a nice effect with the red kind of fading down the stalk. So let's just pop those over to the side for a minute. And then we're now going to do something similar, but not exactly the same, on the main panel. So the first thing to do is to press out all the hearts. And these are handy. I've used these, I've kept these and then used them in other projects as well, which is quite good because it's a whole load of hearts in one go, which is easy to cut out. Otherwise you can spend forever cutting out hearts for other things. There we go. So there is our cut, and there's all our hearts. I don't think on this project we're going to use the hearts because we're going to for a quite clean and simple look. So I'm just going to take my sponge, and I'm just holding it with my fingers this time. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and ink the edges so that we've got a kind of fade into the middle. I'm starting off on the paper and I'm doing a circular motion. I'm just very lightly brushing the edge. Now, when I get to this edge, if I do that motion, there's a chance that I'll pull this up and rip it or bend it. So what I do is I then change my motion. So I change from going anti-clockwise to going clockwise so that there's no chance of me ripping anything. And then just similarly work my way around. You're doing a very light touch, so the chances of tearing anything or screwing it up are fairly slim, but it's always worth being careful. And then again, it's easier to kind of think of it as working out from the middle. In the middle, you kind of go clockwise that way, and you go anti-clockwise that way. And all we're trying to do is just get a little bit of colour on there, but with a fade, so you can see we've got that effect. Now, use the residual ink on your sponge and just go along the edges just to darken them. That always looks better. If you're trying to do any kind of a faded effect, if you always do a really dark bit of that colour on the edge, it just kind of finishes it off. And you've always got loads of ink left on your brush, so you don't need any on your sponge. There we go. So you can see now we've got quite a nice faded effect there. Right, so we pretty much need to assemble this already. So we're pretty much straight in. Now, we're not going to do anything else. This is going to be a very, very minimalistic card. So we're just going to do that, basically. I'm just going to push those other hearts out of the way and grab my glue, which is here. Okay, so we just need to think, where is the line on here that we're going to put this? So we're going to have that there. We're going to put all our hearts in the middle and then our thing on top. But I'm just thinking, I wonder if we need a black piece on there actually, just underneath. I think that might just finish things off. If you think how that's going to look, that would look really quite smart. Whereas this, I'm just worried it's going to get lost a little bit. I mean, I could put a red piece under here, but I'm just, is that a bit obvious? Red, red, red. It could be quite nice actually though. I'll tell you what we'll do, changing things on the fly. We'll put this onto the red So I wasn't going to do that, but now I've looked at it and thought, actually, that might look quite nice. This is it. No mistakes in card making. Stuff changes as you go along. The person who receives the card's never going to know the journey you went through to create it, so it doesn't really matter. Right, let's try this instead then. So find yourself a square edge. I'm just looking at that. Looks like that's a cut. This looks like this is the actual edge of the proper paper. So I'm just going to use that top edge. I'm just going to lay that down and space that so that it's pretty much even. I've just moved that by mistake. There we go. That's right now. So I'm just going to turn that over and give it a good press. The heat from your hand will kind of get the glue working. There we go. That's fine. I just creased that, but that doesn't matter. Okay, right, now use our scalpel. And we're just going to cut this down so that it's got a pretty much straight edge. This will cut really easily because it's only quite a thin paper. There we go, that looks about right. There we go. So that is going to look a bit more striking. Because we're not doing any kind of back panel, that makes it just stand out a damn sight more, as you can see. So I'm just going to use glue here. Don't need a ton. I usually do it in a kind of circular motion just to spread it out. If you do big lines, the glue tends to clump and then it sometimes reaches under the edge. Better to do a kind of a messy zigzaggy version like that. So I'm just going to put that onto my cutting mat grid, roughly in the right place, so that I can then just decide where I'm going to go. So I'm going to go kind of between these two lines. So I'm just laying that down and then laying it down that side and pressing that down. I'm obviously just doing this by eye, so I'm not absolutely sure that's in the right place, but if it's kind of mostly in the right place, well, that's not bad. There you go, that looks relatively even to me. There we go, so press that down. Right, next we're going to go in with our hearts and we're going to put them all through a central point where we're then going to cover. So I'm going to turn these over because we need to do obviously glue on the backs. And what I usually do is just pop a bit of glue, one at top, middle and bottom. There we go. Now these are quite difficult to handle because they're so light, so it's quite good if you press down with your tweezers and just apply a little blob of glue. You can lift these up as well. I've put tiny little foam pads on the backs of these as well, so the tops are lifted off the page. I'm not going to do that this time around. There you go, I'm just putting a couple of little blobs of glue at the end. One in the middle. I'm hardly putting any glue on at all here. You don't need a ton. And this is what we don't want to happen when it actually flips over. This is clear glue, so it won't leave a mess, but that's kind of definitely not what we're trying to achieve. There we go. So then a bit there, a bit there. That one has flipped, but it's kind of on its own, so I'm just going to leave it. And then a bit of glue in the middle of those two. And let's just separate those. These are quite fiddly to work with, as you may have worked out. Cool. Right, so let's start then. So I'm just going to go through that middle heart in lots of different places. So we're kind of putting the hearts on in a kind of a random bouquet effect, filling in any gaps and trying to make it look nice top and bottom. So there we go. So that's roughly how that's going to look. I'm just going to get a bit of scrap and just give it a good old press down. There we go. So you can see it's starting to build up now. It's starting to look quite nice. So we can just set that on one side to just kind of dry completely. What we need to do then next is we need to just cut a happy anniversary message out. This is just a sheet I've printed. It's on a printable cardstock. So it's actually got a little bit of depth to it, which is quite nice. A little bit of weight, a little bit of thickness. So I'm just gonna, and the point of leaving these grey boxes as well, it helps you cut things out. So I'm just going to cut that out. I'm not going to worry too much about the end because I'm going to trim that again anyway. And then, don't want it too thick. There we go. There's our happy anniversary. This is a really good way of printing a bulk load of sentiments that you can then have ready for any kind of occasion. So here we need to just trim this down now. So I'm just gonna, I want it, I kind of want it to have some length, but I don't want it to be super long. So I think we need to just take it in a bit. Yeah. So let's do maybe like a half a centimetre. And similarly, flip it around, and again we'll do about just under kind of half a centimetre. There we go. And then we're going to back that in the same red. So I'm just going to grab another piece of scrap red. I can actually get it. There we go. So again, find a decent corner. Just going to check that that one. There we go, sit that down. Now, because I've cut these similarly, I'm just going to run along with my bone folder. It just flattens down any kind of edges that you've used a scalpel on. There we go. And then again, in with the glue. And we'll go there we go, and then just flip that over, press it down. I always turn it over and do that because you don't want to risk running your hand along anything printed and it smudges. You drag it along, you've then screwed it up. So that looks fine. Okay, so we'll just trim that down again. And then trim that again. It's got quite a small border at this end, but that's okay. As long as we mirror it at the other end, that's fine. See, and did you notice what I did there? I did a very loose cut before I did the deep cut. The loose cut scores the paper. The deep cut then cuts the paper. That's quite a good way of ensuring that your cut gets goes where you kind of want it to go. Now, I'm looking at this and thinking, does that actually need another layer underneath it? I could do a layer of this cream cardstock, but what I think I'll do is actually just lift this up on some foam pads so it sits above anyway. That's another way round that. Just grabbing my foam pads. So because we've got a lump in the middle, we want to leave the middle and just do the outside edges. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go probably about there. So I'm going to leave a gap in the middle. Similarly at the other end. There we go, and then just peel those off. Get rid of those. And then this is now the crucial bit. We need to just lay that in the right place. So let's work out roughly where our middle is. So if I put my, that's another little trick. If you put your, if you lay it down onto your cutting mat and put it equidistant between a point. So for me, that's a little bit over there, a little bit over there. So that's my middle. If I pick it up from there, my tweezers are then in the middle. So if I then go to the middle here, I kind of should be dropping that in the right place. I'm going to put it slightly lower. There we go. Now, the other thing I could do, I could add some of these white hearts that we've cut out around and leave them, well, I mean, it's not really white, it's more of a cream colour. I could dot some around, I could even put some back in, but I think I'm just going to leave that as simple as it is. I quite like it as it is. So there's our card. So a very simple die cut backed with red paper. Then obviously the hearts, which we've kind of redded the tops and left the bottoms cream. And then our simple happy anniversary message, which I'm just going to pull up slightly, which is mounted on foam pads, so it gives it some height. There we go, there's our card for today in pretty much no time at all. Hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, maybe give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel so that you get to see new videos as I post them. Thanks for watching.